Everyone, to all our viewers from all corners of the world. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, depending on where you are. Welcome to the 9th virtual panel discussion hosted by America's Sri Lankan Photographic Art Society in Los Angeles, California, USA. A member of the Photographic Society of America, PSA, and the International Federation of Photography of Art in France, FIAP. The objective of this series is to highlight the elegance of Sri Lanka's fauna and flora. I'm your host, Medini Ratnayaka. We are streaming live from Los Angeles, California, USA, and bridging with our panelists in USA and Sri Lanka. This week's topic is Lessons from Nature. Today, we have two panelists with us who are well informed on the theme. Let's meet our panelists. Mr. Prasad HAPUARACCHI began his journey of photography following his passion for wildlife and nature photography while in high school. He's a self-taught photographer, and he's well-versed in macro photography, apart from wildlife and nature photography. Prasad is a senior lecturer at the National Association of Photographers. He conducts many wildlife and nature photography workshops in Sri Lanka. Prasad is also an active panel member in many photographic competitions held in Sri Lanka. Prasad served as the chairman of Tourist Board Western Province from year 2016 through 2019. Currently, he's the country representative for Asian Wildlife Photographers Club. Prasad is an entrepreneur who heads two companies in Sri Lanka while actively engaged in nature and wildlife conservation projects on voluntary basis in the island. So that is our first panelist. Our second panelist is Mr. Sanjaya Warnasuriya. Sanjay is a business developer by profession and fell in love with photography at the tender age of 5 through paternal influence. Sanjay's passion for the medium made him travel to many parts of the world to observe and document animal behavior in their natural habitats and their interactions with humans. As a self-taught photographer, Sanjay constantly learns and shares creative ideas with fellow photographers. Sanjay holds a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of California, Los Angeles. So Sanjay and Prasad are our panelists today. So in order for us to begin the panel discussion, I would like to first move to Prasad. Good morning, Prasad. I'm telling you good morning because we are in Los Angeles. I know it's good evening to you in Sri Lanka. Yeah. So we are very happy to have you in our panel discussion today. So I'm going to start with you. Our beautiful island, Sri Lanka, is well known for wildlife photography and nature photography. So if you can share with our audience today, what makes Sri Lanka a unique destination for nature and wildlife photography?
Well, good question, Medini. First of all, let me thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to come and have a very fruitful discussion about the nature. I will come back to your question. You asked what makes Sri Lanka a unique destination for a nature and wildlife photographer. Well, if I be honest with you, Sri Lanka is actually very rich in its biodiversity. Let me share some of the pictures along with the discussion we are going today. Well, as we all know, starting from flora and fauna, and from insects to the biggest mammal in the ground and the biggest mammal in the sea, which is elephant and the whales, this biodiversity is very rich here. If I be more specific, the floral plants in Sri Lanka is over 4,000 species. And if I take the insects, over 11,000 insect species are in Sri Lanka, which is actually immense opportunities for a macro photographer who is interested in macro photography. And if you come up to the reptiles, Sri Lanka currently contains 183 species of reptiles, of which 60 are threatened and 130 are endemic. Most of the reptiles are snake, and the largest two species of crocodile, the mugger crocodile and the saltwater crocodile. And when it comes to birds, actually, as we all know, Sri Lanka is a tropical island situated close to the southern tip of India. The bird life of Sri Lanka is very rich for its size of 505 species have been recorded. In addition to the many resident birds, a considerable number of migratory species winter in the country to escape their northern breeding grounds. 34 species are endemic. The other residential species are also found in the nearby Indian mainland. But over 80 have developed distinct Sri Lankan races. Some of these races are very different in their plumage characteristics. From the related forms in India, 26 species are globally threatened. And the bird distribution in Sri Lanka is largely determined by its climatic zones. And I will share the pictures which I have taken regarding the endemic birds. When it comes to mammals, actually, Sri Lanka is home to roughly 123 species of mammals, 41 of which are threatened and 90 critically endangered. 16 of these species are endemic, of which 14 are threatened, including the large sloth bear, mammalian. With 30 different species, Sri Lanka's surrounding waters are home to 28 species of cactians. So these are the mammals which people really willing to see when they are in the wild. And on the other hand, Sri Lanka is a very lucky country, whereas a person who comes to Sri Lanka to see the wildlife and to photograph, they are having the opportunity of seeing the biggest mammal on the ground and the biggest mammal on in the water within a couple of hours' time. So considering all these facts, I really feel like Sri Lanka is one of the best destinations to wildlife photography. If I may say, Sri Lanka is second to Africa only. You are having immense opportunities in Sri Lanka when you consider about the wildlife and nature photography.
Thank you, Prasad, for sharing those amazing images. Now, looking at many of the bird species that you shared with us, can you tell me, for somebody who lives in the US, what are some of the characteristics of these birds? Is Sri Lanka considered a ground, a place for stopping for certain birds during their migration patterns, or do they stay within the borders of the country for a certain time period? And how does that work? And can you explain a little bit more about the migration patterns and the endemic birds?
Well, good question, Sanjay. Actually, in the migratory season, we can witness many birds, the flock of birds migrating to Sri Lanka. And they start breeding here. And once they breeding, they actually, when the time comes, they fly back to their own destinations. Mainly this, actually their migratory habitat starting when these between the dry zones and wet zones. And at the same time, these migratory patterns can be seen with their, if I put to in simple words, now most of the, in the migratory season, most of the bird species which comes to Sri Lanka, we can see in many parts of Sri Lanka, not in one single part. So the main reason why they come over here is because of the climate, which is suitable for their breeding seasons.
Thank you, Prasad.
Thank you.
So to add to Prasad's, I'd like to share some of my images that I have captured in Sri Lanka and been lucky enough to share with you. So Sri Lanka, you know, when I was growing up in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to travel too much because I left Sri Lanka at an early age. But visiting Sri Lanka, whenever I visit, I get the chance to go to many of these places like Yala and Udawalawe, and to see different varieties of animals. Sri Lanka is home to one of the big five. As you can see here, this photograph was taken in Yala National Park. Again, we can see a leopard, an older one. You can tell that this particular leopard is an older one because the wearing of the teeth, she has her teeth worn. So this is an elderly leopard. And a common bird in Sri Lanka with beautiful colors is the green bee eater. Again, this was taken in Yala National Park. You know, many of the food that they feed on are insects like dragonflies and bees, and they are very common in Sri Lanka. Also, we can see a painted stork here in a pond fishing. Also a changeable hawk eagle, one of the major raptors that are present in Sri Lanka. And also an open-billed stork. And of course, a very common bird, but a beautiful bird, the peacock. And a warthog. And also various types of deer. Here we see a young buck. And also jackals, and of course our elephants, the Asian elephant. Sri Lanka is home to the Asian elephant.
Thank you, Sanjay. So, Sanjay, I have a question for you now. As a nature and wildlife photographer who has traveled to many parts of the world, in your experience, what are some of the key elements that attribute to producing a striking image? If you can share your experience with our viewers, that would be great.
Yes, Mehdi. Photography is a visual art form, and there are three main goals that should be achieved to create a dramatic image. The first is to deliver information. The second is to invoke emotion. And the third is to hold the viewer's attention. So if you achieve these three goals, you will have a successful image. For example, here we have a ibex sitting in the afternoon glow of the sun, of the light that is lit from the side. And you can see that the light is providing a three-dimensional image where you have your shadows and your highlights. And then the image is underexposed to separate the subject from its background. So you can see that the background is dark, and then the subject is in the light. So, for example, if your camera says, expose the image at 1/125th of a second, what I have done is expose the image at 1/500th of a second, thereby isolating the subject from its background. See, if you follow what your camera and your equipment is telling you, you will take technically correct images. But if you follow the light, you will make dramatic images. And in this example, it's a similar technique of underexposing the image, where instead of side lighting, you have light coming from the background, from behind the subject. And I have exposed to the light falling on the edges of the subject, which is called rim light, and which essentially separates the subject from its background and gives a three-dimensional effect to the image and the subject. Here we can see a sunset where, again, the same technique has been used, where the main subject, which is your foreground, and the sea stacks is underexposed, and your sky and the highlights are overexposed. This image was taken in Olympic National Park in the US, and in an afternoon, and it gives a dimension through showing us the foreground, where you have rocks and clouds close to you, and then you have your sea stacks and the cliffs as your subject, and then the horizon as your background. This is a very special image, which I captured in Alaska. And this was actually one of the few times that I was actually scared for my life. I had walked along the beach of a lake, taking photographs of a mother and their cub. And I had gotten off the path, and I was just looking down at my camera and observing the pictures that I had taken. And then this bear actually came from nowhere right in front of me, which was 30 feet. And I thought for a moment that it would attack me, and that would be the last day that I would be alive. So, but I just kept on shooting. So this image, it shows an interesting subject. So first we talked about light, following the light. And the second aspect that makes a dynamic image is an interesting subject. So you have a bear right here in front of you, and in the background you can see cabins where the red is. So where people go and camp and go on vacations, and right then and there, amongst them are these bears that you can't see, and they just pop out of nowhere. So having an interesting subject in your image creates a dynamic image. Here again, this image was taken in Alaska. You see two moose cubs, and the mother is close by, where I was observing the mother and the moose cubs and their interactions. Moose can be dangerous animals. You should not get too close to them. And here on an afternoon, while observing them, I was able to capture this warm embrace between the two cubs, which creates an interesting subject. Here we see a cormorant, where I captured in a local lake. Cormorants are known fishermen, or fisher birds rather. And again, you can see the subject where I caught the moment where the bird caught a fish, and which shows dimension with the water droplets, and also an interesting subject where I caught the moment, the exact moment where the cormorant caught a fish. And then again, here you can see the same bird type, during mating season. I was observing these two birds for a few hours, and I saw their various dances and movements and mating rituals. And you can see the male on top and the female at the bottom. Again, their movements have created an interesting image by giving us a wonderful subject. Again, this image was taken in Alaska around 10 p.m. at night during the summer. Again, in the summertime, the sun doesn't go down till 1 o'clock in the morning in Alaska, and it comes up at 4 a.m. And I was watching this bird for a few hours, and he was not doing anything. And all of a sudden, he was ready to take off, and I was able to capture this image. And you will see at the next slide, I was able to frame the subject off center to create a dynamic image. So we have light, we have interesting subjects, and a third aspect that makes for a dramatic image is framing. So you want to try to have your subject off center as much as possible. And then again, here we have a bald eagle, where it's off center. And then I took this image through some branches and used the branches as to fill the frame to make the image more interesting. Another feature to make a dynamic image is to create or try to create 3 dimensions, or the aspect of 3 dimensions on a two-dimensional space. Photography, like art or paintings, is done on a two-dimensional canvas. So if you can create the illusion of depth, which is the 3rd dimension, you will make a interesting image. This image was taken at Mono Lake in Northern California. And the structures that you see are called tufa. They are calcium structures. And this lake was actually filled with water, and then the water was diverted to residential areas in California, and then which drained the lake. And these stacks were at the bottom. Now you can see them, and when you go to visit. So here you have the first structure close to you, and then the second and the third away from you. And then you have the mountains in the background, which give this image a 3-dimensional look, which creates a dynamic image. And again, this image was taken in Yosemite. And again, you have your foreground where you have the branches, you have your subject, which is the tree in the middle of the river, and then your cliffs as your background. And then you have the river that draws the viewer's eye into the dimension, which creates a 3-dimensional look to the image. Last but not least, complementary colors. This photograph was taken in Mexico City, and these are feathers of various birds with different colors. And here you can see complementary colors of yellow and blue that make for a dramatic image. And again, the second part of it is the reds and the greens that that are also complementary colors that factor into creating a dynamic image. So if you have all those three, all of those four factors baked into an image, you will be able to create a dynamic and wonderful image.
Thank you, Sanjay. Prasad, moving on to you, you have many years of experience as a wildlife photographer. So I want to focus on the challenges of wildlife photography. So if you can share with our audience, what are the challenges that you have encountered as a wildlife photographer? That would be great.
Yeah, Medini actually to a wildlife photographer, once he's in an expedition, every moment is a challenging moment. Like if you take, there are many wildlife sanctuaries and national parks in Sri Lanka. If we consider one by one, let's talk about Singaraja first. Singaraja is a rainforest where you can't go by a vehicle. You have to walk actually. From the entrance up to the Lion's Rock, this is around 12 kilometers walk, the entire stretch. So carrying all your camera gear and walking 12 kilometers is a challenge, right? So, and on top of that, the weather conditions. Sometimes it starts raining without your knowledge. You have to be ready for that. So this is how the Singaraja rainforest is. So for those challenges we have to overcome, we have to get prepared to overcome those challenges. And if you take Horton Plains, well, I call it heaven on earth actually. It's a real nice, beautiful place where you should go and have a look. Horton Plain is misty and it's raining again. It's very misty. Let me share a video to show you how Horton Plains look like. I'm sorry, I can't find that video. I will show it to you later on. But this is actually a very misty environment and it's raining. Sometimes it starts raining continuously. So like in Horton Plains, rain is one of the challenging factors that you have to overcome. When you consider about Yala and Vilpattu National Parks, it's the lighting is one of the main factors that we have to think, because Yala, we always go under the trees. So the lighting conditions change time to time. The person who is behind the camera should be able to capture whatever the moments that they see in front of them. I think you can see the picture which I'm sharing right now. Can you?
Prasad, we can only see the screen right now. If you can open the folder and show us the picture, I think it might work. We can see the folder, but not the pictures.
All right, give me a second. Can you see the picture now?
It looks like it's loading. It might take a couple of seconds, but it looks like it's loading. We are still not getting the picture, Prasad.
Can you see this now?
Yes, we can see it now. Yes.
Right. So this has been taken in YAL actually. And we were in a tight situation inside the vehicle, and I was with the bigger lens, that was 800mm lens. This was the only shot that I was able to take of this bird. So even though I want to take the entire body of the bird, I could not make it happen because we were so close to the bird. So for these conditions, we have to get ready. These are one of the challenges that we have to overcome. And the lighting again. This was shot in Vilpattu, and luckily we had a very nice light behind, from the side of our vehicle around 45 degrees angle, and I was able to shot this photograph there. And at the same time, in case if we were against the light, we were losing one of the best opportunities that we are having. So when we are inside wildlife, we were inside a national park, we have to think about these challenges and how to overcome these situations. And at the same time, let me share a few of the pictures that I have taken when I was in Horton Plains. Hope you can see.
Yes, we can see your screen now, Prasad.
Yes, this was shot at actually in Horton Plains. It's a juvenile of a dull blue flycatcher, very skittish, and we were in a very cold weather condition. Time to time, we had to clean our lenses because the mist actually deposits on the front element of the lens. So after a couple of minutes, we can't see anything. It's a blurry image. So like in Horton Plains, we have to overcome that kind of challenges as well. These are the common challenges that a wildlife photographer has to face when they were in the national parks in Sri Lanka.
Well, thank you, Prasad.
Thank you. And to add to what Prasad just mentioned, you know, the weather gods have a huge say in what you do when you're out in nature. Fortunately and unfortunately. So sometimes you just get lucky and sometimes you just don't. So this, for example, was a trip that I made to Yosemite National Park in Northern California. And, you know, leaving Southern California, you know, I'm used to sunny skies and no rain or definitely not snow unless you're up in the mountains. So by the time I got to Yosemite National Park, there was a huge snowstorm and you couldn't really do much. And I was pretty much knee deep in snow. But I was able to capture a few images where there's snow, and also you can see, you know, a really cloudy and overcast sky. So I decided to turn this into a black and white image to show what the conditions are like during a snowstorm in Yosemite. But fortunately, I got lucky, and you know, little by little, the snowstorm subsided, and the sun started peeking through, and I was able to capture a few images that were pretty memorable. So here you can see El Capitan and the Merced River. And also this image that I showed before, you have the Eagle Cliffs and the Merced River, flowing through Yosemite. And I was really lucky to capture these images. I thought I would not be able to get any on that particular week. Here again, it's an image of Gloria Pfeiffer Beach in Big Sur in Northern California. And this actually used to be the view from Gloria Pfeiffer, this lady who used to live there. She had a home, and this was her view from her bedroom. And you have this lovely waterfall that's falling onto the beach. And I had gotten there a few hours earlier, and I was waiting till the sun goes down, and I was able to capture this image. And literally 5 minutes after I captured this image, the fog rolled in. And for that whole weekend, I could not see more than 10 feet in front of me because of the fog. So this was pretty much the only image I was able to capture. It's still not to my standards or my taste, and I'll be making sure to go up there again. But again, we are at the mercy of the weather gods when you're out in nature and trying to capture images. And sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you just don't. Here, this image was taken again at Mono Lake in Northern California, which is about a 7-hour drive from where I live. So I'd gone up to Mono Lake that particular weekend. And when I got there, it was just raining, and it was not ideal conditions for taking images. So I waited for a few hours, and the rain would not subside. So I finally said, okay, let me just come back on another day. And I packed up my gear and started heading back. So half an hour into my drive to Southern California, the rain subsided. And I said, maybe I'll get lucky. And I headed back to Mono Lake, and lo and behold, I was able to capture this amazing sunset where I've exposed again to the highlights, and then also captured the foreground and kind of reduce the exposure in post-production to create this image. But then again, it goes to say, sometimes luck has a huge part in how we photograph and the images that we capture.
I would like to add a few more things apart from what Sanji said, Medini, if we have enough time.
Sure.
Yes. Now, as Sanji said, there are many challenges that we have to overcome when we are on an expedition. Most of the challenges depend on the habitats and also the size of the subject that we are going to photograph. And at the same time, as I told you regarding the weather conditions, sometimes the challenge creates us an opportunity. I think you can see the screen that I have shared right now with you. So, can you see it?
Yes, we can see the screen, Prasad. Go ahead.
Right. So, when we were on an expedition, it was heavily raining, but we did not stop our expedition. We thought of make it an opportunity and take some good pictures out of it. This is what was the outcome of that expedition. And these two white-bellied sea eagles were far away from where we were. And I could not take a clear shot, but what I did was, I actually take a shot and I got it as one of the mobile phones screen, actually for a mobile phone screen. So this was that the picture which I showed was heavily distributed among most of the people in Sri Lanka on their mobile phones as a wallpaper. As I told you earlier, where the subject matters, and not only the subject, size of the subject, and also the habitat of the subject matters for a photograph. Smaller subjects is really difficult to photograph when it comparable to the larger mammals. Basically, if you take birds, if you take small birds, very difficult to take pictures. I will show you a couple of endemic birds which I have photographed in Sri Lanka, and I will share the experience with that so that you can see how this has been photographed. This is actually, this is the jungle fowl, we call it as the Sri Lankan national bird. This was photographed in Vilpattu. You can see the motion of the bird. It was walking across the road immediately, where I was able to capture the moment, and still the moment is there. So if I were not with the proper settings, I could have missed this opportunity to take this shot. And this is the female of it, but this was photographed in Singaraja rainforest, the female of jungle fowl. This bird is a very skittish bird, Ceylon's spur fowl. If it heard a single sound, it will definitely disappear and you will lose the chance of getting a nice picture of this bird. So the photographer have to be very patient and very cautious when the photographer in the grounds to take pictures of these kind of birds. This is black-capped bulbul. The pictures that I'm showing is all the endemic bird species in Sri Lanka. This was captured in Singaraja rainforest. And this is black-trumped flameback. This was captured in Kadwell, actually in my backyard. Very skittish. One single sound makes them flee away. Ceylon rufous babbler, again in Singaraja. Common swallow, this was captured in Kadwell. The crested drongo, this was captured in Singaraja rainforest. And crimson-backed woodpecker. It was not the same one which I showed you earlier. This is a different species. This was captured in Singaraja. And I showed this picture earlier, a dull blue, juvenile of a dull blue flycatcher. This is again a dull blue flycatcher which was photographed in Horton Plains. The green-billed cockle. Actually, we were there for hours and hours to take a shot of this bird, but we couldn't come up with a nice photograph. This is just a recorded shot. When we asked from the villagers, they told us they saw a couple of days back, very recently, that they did not see this bird. But luckily, we heard the sound of this bird and we followed the sound and we were able to capture this photograph. This was the only photograph that we were able to take at that expedition. Laird's parakeet, an endemic bird, shot at Singaraja rainforest. The blue magpie, this was also shot in Singaraja. Crimson-headed barbet, one of the endemic birds. There are two barbets, endemic barbets in Sri Lanka, crimson-headed barbet and the yellow-fronted barbet. I will show you the yellow-fronted barbet's picture later on. This is Pampalo game pigeon. This was photographed in Trincomalee.
So Prasad, now as a nature and wildlife photographer, now for me, I plan months in advance. Now, right now it's July, July, and then I know that come September, the end of September, middle to early October, the leaves are going to start changing in the US. And I'm already planning my trips as to where I'm going and already doing my research to figure out the places where I can camp and where I can stay and where I should go to capture, fall colors. So when you go on these expeditions and safaris and photo tours, how in advance do you plan? And can you explain and elaborate on some of the processes that you use to plan and capture these wonderful images?
Well, Sanjay, it depends on the subject that we are going to photograph. Not like early days when you become a person who is matured in wildlife photography, you are not trying to take every other picture that you see. You follow one subject. So sometimes we plan for certain bird species like the endemic birds to Singaraja and the endemic birds to highlands likewise. And we plan our expedition accordingly. Like if we are thinking of migratory birds, of course we have to plan our trips after the after September actually till next year April, maximum April, like first week of May maximum. So it depends on what subjects, what species that you are going to photograph, and accordingly that only we plan our expeditions, where to head it and how to do it. So there are a few more pictures for me to go ahead. If you want, I can share these as well.
Oh, absolutely. You have some amazing images, much better than mine, and love to see.
No, I have seen very nice pictures of yours, Sanjay. Well, this is actually the spotted wing thrush. I have a very good experience here at that time when I photographed this bird actually.
Prasad, you will have to share your screen. We are not seeing the pictures now.
All right. Right. So this is actually spotted wing thrush, which I have been photographed in Singaraja. I was there with one of the tour leader. His name was Chintaka De Silva, one of the best tour leaders in Sri Lanka. He heard the sound of this bird and he told me the spotted wing thrush is somewhere around here. So be prepared for the shot. I was looking everywhere, but I couldn't spot this bird. Fortunately, it flew and perched right in front of my camera, just around a couple of meters ahead, and I was able to take this photograph. This is Sri Lanka brown-capped babbler, and it's the same bird again. This bird is not that shy actually. You can have enough time to take nice photographs. But when you come to this bush warbler, this has been photographed in Horton Plains. It's a very shy and skittish bird. And the other thing is tracking this bird is very difficult. We have to go through its sounds. And since it's a warbler, it resides inside the bushes and you can't see it just like that. So what we do is we actually follow the sound of the bird and we just focus on the bushes. So we can see the vibrations of the bushes, bush to bush. So we know the bird is traveling from bush to bush in one straight. What we do is actually we follow the bird. At a time, what this bird do is it just come out of the bush, peep outside, and again go inside. That's the only chance that you are having to take a picture when you consider about this endemic bird species, Sri Lankan bush warbler. This is actually the Sri Lankan chestnut-backed owlet, one of the favorite birds which I like. Endemic bird. This was shot at Singaraja. Sri Lanka grey hornbill. It's a female bird. This was at Ketalapattala, again in Singaraja, bordering village to Singaraja. It's in the same place. the male of Sri Lankan grey hornbill. The hanging parrot is feeding its juvenile. Again, this was shot in Singharaj. The Sri Lankan myna, in Sri Lanka we call it as Salalinia. Again in Singharaj. The scaly thrush, very skittish bird. Most of the time they are not perching on tree branches. Most of the time they are on the grounds. So we have to be very cautious. Even their call, it's very difficult to identify because once it make a sound and it maintains the silence. So we have to be very cautious, follow the sound and then track the bird and take the shot. So taking a picture of Sri Lankan scaly thrush is a dream of most of the wildlife photographers are having. I was lucky to take this shot in my last expedition which I made to Singharaj. Give me to Bachelor. Yes, Sanjay, go ahead.
Yes, there was that wonderful image that you shared with me of the two birds who were converging in mid-flight and then were about to collide. Can you share the story with us and the viewers of how you captured that wonderful image and you know, the awards and accolades that you have received on that, because it's definitely worth sharing.
Right. I think this is the picture that you are referring to.
Yes, yes, that's correct.
Yes, most of the bird specialist says that this is a territorial fight of two white-bellied sea eagles. And some are used to say that it's code shifting. But whatever happening over there, this specific shot is once in lifetime shot. Well, I took this at Vilpattu long time back, around 10 years back. We were doing our expedition, and actually we were looking for a leopard to take some pictures. Within couple of hours time, we were on a land where a ground where we can see the sky perfectly. There we saw these two birds. Actually, it was very nice flight formation. You should have witnessed it by your eyes, Sanji. It was really marvelous. These two birds, actually, they came from two sides and they stopped for a second like this. This was the moment that I captured. Most of the people, actually, they said this was Photoshop. But for a wildlife photographic expert, of course, they can identify that this is not Photoshop. As you can see, the bird in the left-hand side, undercovers are fully dark, it's dark. And on the right-hand birds, undercovers are fully light up because the light was, the angle of the lighting was from left to right.
Yes.
Yes, Sanjay.
Yes. I mean, it's, as you said, it's just once in a lifetime image, and it's perfectly composed, perfectly exposed, and you know, it's just a marvel to see. And thank you for sharing with us.
You're welcome, Sanjay.
Thank you, Prasad, and thank you, Sanji, for that insight as well. So, Sanji, I would like to move back to you. Now, I'm sure in our audience today, we have a lot of young, upcoming photographers who would like to learn a lot from you both. So, I'm going to focus on the mistakes and misconceptions. Now, if you can share with our audience, what are some of those common mistakes and misconceptions relating to nature photography if we focus on nature photography?
Yes, Medini. You know, photography and becoming better to me is a journey. You know, I have seen many images, you know, that Prasad has shared. And, you know, to me, you know, and not just Prasad, but every other photographer I see, I think their images are better than mine, and I want to be better. So, you know, some of these images that Prasad shared, you know, inspires me to go to these places and travel and capture some of those images. But one pitfall in doing that is having an image in your head and trying to just replicate that. While that approach is good for practice and to hone your skills in terms of exposure and composition and other factors, it may not be the best approach to create something original and differentiate yourself from others. Take, for example, this image of Yosemite. You know, this is you know, the Merced River in the foreground and Yosemite Valley in the background. And you have the sun going down behind me and the light reflecting on the clouds and coming down through the canyon. It's a dramatic image, and you know, many of my friends and colleagues have commented and said that this is, you know, some of my best work. But to me, actually, this image, you know, has been shot, you know, hundreds and thousands of times by different photographers, and there's really nothing special. So when I made my trip to Yosemite this one time, I had this image in my head saying, okay, I'm going to capture Yosemite Valley just like everybody else has, and I did. But then again, there's nothing different. So, you know, my advice to young photographers and also to myself is to, you know, be open to different angles, different, you know, lighting, and also different scenes to capture something original. So if you do that, you know, you will create something unique, and that is truly yours. Again, here, this is a tunnel view in Yosemite. Again, you know, similar image which has been captured by thousands and thousands of photographers. And although it's a wonderful image, there's nothing special. So, but when you branch out, you know, you capture images like this, you know, which has not, you know, Mono Lake has been photographed many times, but nobody else has this particular image, you know, of this particular sunset on this particular day, because I was the only photographer there, and everybody else had left. So I know that there's only one of these, so, and that's mine. Again, this is at Redwood National Park in California, and I just went to visit and did not have an idea of an image, you know, in my head, and was able to capture part of the trees, the trunks, and also the ferns on the ground. And it's a unique photograph that's mine. And then again here, fall colors in Oregon. These are aspen trees. I was just driving by and had my camera and just pulled over and took this panorama of the fall colors with the aspens and the sun setting behind the trees. And then again, you know, this was an image where I got lucky, as I mentioned to you before. Just a moment before the sun went down and the clouds rolled in, again, which is unique due to the light, which gives it dimension. And then this image, I was lucky enough to capture in Alaska, where I was on an expedition and to shoot these brown bears, coastal brown bears. They had come out of hibernation, and before the salmon runs, what the bears do is they come to the shore and they sniff clams that are underneath, that are buried underneath the sand of the beach. So, I mean, they can smell these clams up to 5-6 feet underneath the sand, and what they do is they start digging, and they get the clams out, and they make it part of their diet. So I was not ready to capture this image, but meaning I didn't have the idea of this particular image in my head when I went, but I was open to capturing many things. And it happened to be that this bear just got really, really close to us, and we had to stand up and be ready just in case that they came too close, and our guide had a flare. But the moral of the story is, I was prepared to capture something that was unexpected. Another common misconception, Medini, is that you have to, spend a lot of money and travel to many, many different places to capture amazing images, which is really not the case. And Prasad can attest to this as well. There's lots of, lovely species, flora and fauna in our backyards that we can capture. For example, this image I captured close to my home. And it's of a hummingbird. I have used a fast shutter speed to freeze the motion of its wings, and you can see it's framed off center, and the bird is feeding on nectar. Again, this is a heron that I captured at a local lake. I was watching this bird for a few minutes, and I had my camera and everything prepared for a takeoff, and the heron took off, and I was able to capture this image where you can see the foreground, and again the multiple dimensionalities with the spread out wings and the direction it's flying. And again, this is another image that I captured, in my backyard during the summertime with a macro lens. A lovely image of a butterfly with complementary colors. Didn't take much. I was lucky to have good lighting, and to have a good autofocus focusing system to capture this image. And here during the wintertime in Oregon, I was able to capture these black-tailed deer just staring at me and looking to see what I was doing. So you don't really have to travel that much to capture wonderful images. It's great, and you can capture some amazing images if you do travel, but that's not necessarily the case all the time.
Well, also there are few more common mistakes where a wildlife photographer do. Most of the time, the failure to review the image once they take a shot, and also the motion blur, and not ready to press the shutter button when the right moment comes, and the depth of field is too shallow. So these things are the common mistakes, and not being patient and not watching your surroundings. On the very recent expedition we had, hello?
We can hear you, Prasad.
Right. On the very recent expedition we had to Horton Plains, it was only me who were able to take the shot of the whistling thrush female. This is the picture that I'm sharing right now with you. Because I was there, I was ready to click my shutter button. None of the other people were aware of it, and they were not following the sounds. So they couldn't take the shot. I was able to take this lovely bird picture because I was ready for that. So these are basically most of the people, these are the common mistake most of the people do when they are on expeditions. And these are the things that we have to reduce from ourselves as well. This is the male version of whistling thrush. This was photographed somewhere else, and the female was photographed on the same day at Horton Place on another place. I was very lucky to photograph the both birds on one day, male and female, just because of I was patient and I was ready to press the shutter button when the right moment arrives. So that is what I have to add on top of what Sanji said.
Thank you, Prasad. So, Prasad, moving back to you, you had an amazing journey as a wildlife and nature photographer. So, share with us, with our audience, what are the advantages and benefits you enjoy being a wildlife and nature photographer?
Well, Medini, being a wildlife photographer, one good thing is I'm very healthy because I used to walk a lot, and when I'm behind my camera, I don't feel tired. One is that, and the peace of the mind. We all busy people. I'm a person who is into business, and all day long we are stuck in the office and we were with our office work. But once in a while, when we go on an expedition, I really feel like they pump new blood into my veins and I'm another new person on the other day. So one thing is healthiness and the peace of mind and the relaxation that I'm getting when I'm in the wild. And at the same time, we learn to be very patient because sometimes for one single shot, we wait hours and hours to take for that single shot only. I have been in Kumana for more than 2.5 hours just to take one single white crab's photograph. Not only that, as a nature and wildlife photographer based in Sri Lanka, I get to share the biodiversity and the natural beauty Sri Lanka offers with the rest of Sri Lanka offers with the rest of the world. Most of these images has been shared nationally and internationally for educational and conservation purposes. Actually, this is one of the main reasons which I am into wildlife photography, because what we see today we should preserve for the younger generations to see in future. And in a way, support to the environment and to the tourism sector and to support the country's economic growth as well. Most of these pictures has been taken to conservation purposes, whereas what I believe is what we see today should be able to see by another generations ahead. So being a wildlife photographer, actually the best benefit I'm having is having the healthiness, peace of mind, relaxation, and the patience which I learned to learn when I started doing wildlife photography. So these are the things that I gathered from nature and wildlife photography.
Thank you, Prasad. I really like that thought of contributing as a wildlife photographer to promote our beloved country, our motherland, Sri Lanka, which is very, very inspiring. And moving back to you, Sanji, do you have anything to add? Because you live in Southern California, and it's a very busy, hectic life that we have in US. So what are the key benefits and advantages you enjoy in addition to your profession being a wildlife and nature photographer?
Absolutely. You know, I'm kind of jealous of Prasad and the environment he lives in. As you mentioned, you know, we live very busy lives here in the US, and it's challenging to take the time to actually go and photograph. Whereas in Sri Lanka, I mean, you can step outside and you'll see birds, and within a few hours you can go to Yala or Vilpattu and see leopards and different flora and fauna and birds and crocodiles and all of that. But to me, wildlife and nature photography it's about memories. See, I mean, to me, this is a special picture, but it's very hard for me to describe the actual moment, that I saw this image in Sri Lanka, and I can still remember the moment that I clicked the shutter and not just looking at the image, but just going, wow. I mean, it's like, I can't even believe that I'm in such a wonderful place and, experiencing this amazing creature. And, I'm getting to take this image. It's just an unbelievable experience that everybody should have the opportunity to experience. And also, to me, not being out of Sri Lanka for almost 30 years, I look back at our wonderful motherland, and I hope and I pray that, people, realize and understand what a, wonderful treasure and how lucky they are to have such a diverse surrounding, and also to have, a country that is home to so many species. And I really hope that some of my images are seen throughout the world, and people think that, you know what, Yala and Vilpattu is worth saving for future generations. So not only, people in Sri Lanka, but people in all over the world can come and enjoy and have the opportunity to see a leopard, to see a painted stork, to see green bee eaters catching dragonflies, and to see crocodiles, hunting. So that's something I would say, is an advantage, and something that I would love to share with, our viewers and all my friends and colleagues.
Thank you very much, Sanjay, for that thought, that message, because when we live outside our motherland, and we are 10,000 miles away from our beloved motherland. So it's very, very important for us to share that message with the world about the biodiversity and all the other benefits that we have in Sri Lanka that we truly enjoy and we miss because we are not there, and we are so much looking forward to that, traveling back again when we get the opportunity after COVID-19 to visit our beautiful motherland. So thank you so much. Okay. So with that, we are concluding our panel discussion today about lessons from the nature. So Suri, I want to thank our panelists today, Mr. Prasad HAPUARACCHI and Mr. Sanjaya Warnasuriya, for joining us for this panel discussion. And let's take a moment to take a sneak peek into what we have in our pipeline for our next panel discussion. Suri, if we can show our viewers the flyer for our next panel discussion, that would be great. There you go. So our next panel discussion is going to be on August 8th, which is going to be in 2 weeks at the same time. So we'll be streaming live. Los Angeles time would be 7:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. In Sri Lanka, it's 8 p.m. in the evening. And the topic is going to be behavior of Asian elephants in Sri Lanka. And our speaker is Dr. Prithviraj Fernando, a medical doctor and a PhD holder on genetics, ecology, and conservation of Asian elephant from University of Oregon, United States. Dr. Prithviraj Fernando is also the chairman of Center for Conservation and Research. So that is our next panel discussion in 2 weeks on 8th of August. I hope everyone will join us. That is going to be a very, very interesting discussion, our 10th panel discussion hosted by America's Sri Lankan Photographic Art Society to learn interesting facts about this majestic creature, Asian elephant, from an expert. So we hope to see you in 2 weeks. I hope you enjoy a fantastic week ahead. Well,